My name's Stephanie Francis, that's my full name. Everybody knows me as Steph. I don't know where I started shortening my name, but I did. I work at Touchstone, I'm employed by Touchstone in Leeds, and my role there is anti-stigma and volunteer coordinator, mainly because stigma is something that means a lot to me. I've been aware of it in the community, especially around mental health, as well as other things, for several years. I've been at Touchstone coming up for 18 years in September, and yeah, I became aware of it through family connections, but also things that I heard about in the community, the way people were describing people that they'd seen, that they knew of, in not the best way. And my motto's always been, how do you know why that person is appearing the way that they are? Do something about it. Have you been up to them and spoken to them? So that kind of gave me an impetus to actually join that area of work, if you like, so that I could also develop my knowledge as well. My background is actually in counselling. I'm a trained and qualified person-centred counsellor. Didn't really pick it up because at the time, going back a long time ago now, there wasn't enough work in that area, so I had to make the choice of doing other things. I'm also a member at Roscoe Methodist Church, and I've been there for about 10 years or so now. And my role there mostly is a steward, but obviously it's helped me to connect more to the community as well. I absolutely love being a part of community, any community if I'm honest. Over my years of working, I've worked with every community you can think of, whether it's age, whether it's LGBT, whether it's the black, the African, Asian, the whole caboodle. I've been amongst all of them. I grew up in an area in Leeds near Gledhow Valley Woods, kind of on the Hare Hills, Chapel Allerton boundary, and I guess our area, it was like communities within communities. So I was around a whole mixture of people from the word go. I'm also, so at Roscoe, what I also do is I also run a Friday Wellbeing Cafe. Started off as a welcome cafe with some funding that we got through Leeds City Council and others. And we started off providing a warm space for people who might otherwise be out on the street or whatever, to help with the cost of living burden. When that funding ran out, I spoke to my manager and she was grateful enough to say, yeah, continue it as a wellbeing cafe. So that's what I've been doing, and we regularly get people from, not just from the community, anybody is welcome to come in. They make friends. It basically gets them out of the house so that they're not isolated. Yeah. I have volunteers from Touchstone and my service, which is Being You Leeds, and they actually pretty much run the cafe. So I know that if I'm not around, they can get on with it anyway, because I'm very much about empowering people, including volunteers, to help them to recognise that they can do things. They don't need hand-holding all the time. And for me, it's rewarding just to see how they develop and see that, and let them see they can do it. Yeah. I'm also a volunteer at the Wydan shelter. Wydan is the West Yorkshire Destitute Asylum Seeker Network. I got involved in that again through Roscoe as part of the Methodist Circuit, when we used to host the men, because it's men that we actually support, we used to host them for overnight sleeps on a weekly basis at Roscoe, and the shelter continued when they took over one of the churches that were going to close down. So I'm part of the volunteering list there, and basically go around on an evening, help with the dinners, make sure the men are okay. We sit, we have conversations, we play snooker, whatever it is. I'm more of a visitor to them rather than the other way around, because they actually live in the premises now. But again, I'm learning as much from them as the other way around. because they're from all different backgrounds. They've mostly had traumatic experiences, but I get a lot from them, from that. So apart from that, I'm also a wife and mum to 2 adults. My son is going to be 39 this year. Sorry, 38. My daughter's 30. My daughter has lived experience. She's got diagnosed psychosis, so I've got an element of understanding about mental health issues. But I also recognise that it's not about casting people to one side and thinking they can't do anything, that they shouldn't be around people. She behaves normally like anybody else, and why shouldn't she? And I identify with her, not as her condition. And one of the things I always say to people is, don't look at that person and see their condition. Look at it and see them, who they are, value them for being them. Everybody's different. I think for me, my role around mental health and racial equalities is, even though I'm not at the front of, in terms of the medical world, the medical side of it, for me, I'm quite passionate about people with lived experience being able to have a voice, and for the powers that be to actually not just hear that voice, but actually use it to make changes. The influencers, people who can do something about it, and the volunteers I work with, they are also anti-stigma champions. Very, very diverse group of people. There's about 20 of them from all different ethnicities, all different characteristics, age, whatever it is, and all of them have got their own story to tell. It's about giving them that platform to be able to tell that story, but also knowing that by doing that, the people who are sat at the higher level not just listen to them, but implement changes. I've been working in this area now, as I say, for nearly 18 years, and we started off in what we call the Community Development Service, focusing on BME communities, and it was based on the Delivering Race Equality agenda, as a result of what happened to David Rocky Bennett back in the 90s. That's where it all stemmed from. Some people would say they haven't seen a lot of changes since then. The fear, I think, of people revealing or disclosing their mental health issues is still a massive taboo because of historical memories of what's happened to some people, and because of that trust element. And for me, my role in encouraging people to speak up, to talk about it, I think helps to break down that stigma, and it helps people to feel safe. I try, where possible, to work with the right authority, the right significant people, if you like, to provide safe spaces where people can talk. So it's not just about standing up in the middle of a crowd, sharing your experience. It's about getting the right platform for people to be able to do that, where they feel safe, but also giving them the message, share what you feel comfortable sharing. Do not feel overexposed, because there's also been situations where people have said things and they said, shouldn't have said this, shouldn't have said that. So I always say to people, only say what you feel comfortable saying, because eventually by doing that they'll get to a point where they're happy to give a bit more. And I think knowing that and seeing that changes are made encourages them. The fact that you're doing this project is something that 10 years ago wouldn't have happened. So changes are there, and I think the people who've taken part in it, they can see where racial injustice can start to be reduced. And the fact that people find it easier to create support groups, to go to organisations for support, for me is evidence that they're starting to feel safer about disclosing. I think for me, talking about the past goes back probably from me being a teenager. Without going into too much detail, my sister was the first black headmistress in West Yorkshire, and not just that accolade, but what she actually did within the community. She set up something called summer school, play scheme as they used to call it, one of the first in the UK. Most people, well, Chapeltown in Leeds is known as the community where most black people are. And most people, if you walk around the street and you mention her name, they'll know her. A lot of it is because of the summer school and also the Saturday schools that she set up. But also, I remember, I actually grew up with a lot of the young people from that time, even though I was only a teenager. And I'm aware of some of them talking about the issues that they had to face with not just in school, because of their ethnicity, but also, and because of stereotypes, but also things in the home, things in the community, where it just wasn't understood, it just wasn't talked about. And I think for me, part of it was one day wanting to be somebody who would be able to say to them, actually, we need to not just talk about it, we need to change it, we need to improve it, we need to let people know that it's okay to talk about it, but what happens when you talk about it? Where does it go? What does it change? Because within our community, people don't want to talk about stuff unless they know it's going to change. They don't see the point. You know, filling out a survey when it's going to be shoved in a drawer, what's the point? They want to know it's going to have an impact. So that kind of is what brought me to the present. And for me, it's about making sure that people continue to have a voice, but also that they are the change influencers, you know, and they can actually, in their lifetime, they can actually see the change happening. When I hear about people talking about not being able to get, to be admitted if they need to be admitted into hospital because there's no beds, for me, that's a worrying sign. Does that mean that there are so many people within the communities who are unwell that the beds are being clogged up? Or does it mean that that people are seeking help more? I'm not sure, but I think there needs to be better resourcing and in the right way. You know, people always say the money is there. It needs to be spent in the right way, but also communities need to start looking after each other again, like we did back in the day, not just depending on the government and the councils to provide everything. Look after each other, support each other and talk to each other. And if you can do that, less people will end up in crisis situations. People need to start talking again, not just on the phone, but they need to actually start talking to each other again and to feel confident that there is somebody there is a community member, there's a place, whether it's church, whether it's school, whatever, that they can go to and they're going to be listened to. Even if they're not going to have a solution, to be able to be listened to is a massive part of the problem anyway. So one thing that's already started to happen, which I'm really, really honoured to be a part of, is the Synergy project. When I heard about it, if I'm honest, I didn't know a great deal about it. It's been online, and it's good that it's been online because I've seen such a massive group of people coming together, some community groups that I wasn't even aware of. And I think for me, I'm saddened for me that I wasn't aware of it. I wish I did, but it's really, really positive because some of them are already working together. And I think where our strength is in the BME community is more collaboration. You know, I know commissioning doesn't always dictate that. Commissioning often separates because everybody's after a piece of the pot, if you like. Everybody's got their organisations established and they want to keep things going. And that's fine because there are differences in them. But I think it's really important for the synergies of the world, of Leeds, to be able to have physical meeting space where they can actually get together, and even if it's once a month, once every 2 months, pick one subject and work together to talk about this is the particular issue, this is a priority. Let's decide together how we're going to start to explore it, to unpick it. How is it impacting on the community? Who is it impacting on? But not just have the organisations collaborating. Get some of the service users in, the people who has actually been affected. They're the ones that need the voice, and they're the ones that should be included. And when I say included, maybe that's the wrong word, involved. They should be a main part of it. You know, I don't like the word included. I don't like the word involved, because it suggests that it's when it suits you to bring them in. You're doing things for them, to change things for them. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be changing it with them. So the collaboration needs to be not just community groups, faith groups, whatever it is. It needs to be the people with the lived experiences, whether it's the carers, whether it's the person. It needs to be the people at the heart of it. They're the ones that should be co-producing and co-facilitating to make decisions that affect them, but also a lot of them, because they've been affected from a young age, let's not mistaken that, also get young people in as well to talk about what's happening for them and where they think changes need to be made, you know, including schools. You know, there's counselling and stuff being brought into schools, but are they really being listened to? So it needs to be a wider collaboration, not just limited on organisations, on people who are given funding to do it, a wider community collaboration. For me, ally, it means being aware of, for example, your unconscious bias. Being aware that everybody is different. Being aware and accepting you do have your prejudices, but don't allow them to dictate how you behave towards others, you know. Because you're not from a particular community doesn't make you better than them. I think it's important as an ally that you, even if you don't understand or you don't agree with another faith, another culture, whatever it is, because they're just not the same as you, accept them for who they are, because they probably think the same about you. They're accepting you for who you are. And I think it's important to do that as a first hurdle, and just think all people want is someone to listen to them and to accept that whatever it is that they're dealing with, it's real for them, and that you could one day be in a situation where you need that ally yourself, and you wouldn't want them to turn their back on you because you're different to them. So for me, being an ally is about accepting and walking alongside, not necessarily putting yourself in their shoes, not being them, because you're not them, but accepting that they're going through whatever it is and that they need someone to virtually be a hand holder, if you like, or to point them in the right direction. And to me, being an ally is as simple as that, being supportive if and when it's needed, without compromising yourself in any way that could be dangerous to yourself. So keeping yourself safe, but also being a friend, simple as that. You know, whatever newfangled words there are out there, I think it's simply about being a friend. In terms of volunteers, I've worked with volunteers now for 12 years, nearly 12 years, in different ways. And the one thing that's come through for me is always that they're sometimes not respected for who they are. People see them for their condition. They see them for their lived experience. So I don't like to use that phrase very much. I prefer to use the phrase their story, because we all have a story at the end of the day. But also, I think valuing them for the person that they are. You know, when people come on board or when they want to join us as volunteers, they bring a wealth of skills, a wealth of expertise with them that many people who are paid staff members don't even have. You know, it's through different things, that different situations that have caused them to be in the situation they're in, mostly through no fault of their own. And I think we have to remember that and be respectful of them, give them that space to let them tell their story, but not over-focus on it. Because a lot of volunteers I work with, they want to redevelop themselves, they want to re-establish themselves, or they want to be a totally different person from who they were in the past. They want to change altogether. And I think enabling them to tell their story in their way and to tell you who they feel that they are or want to be, my work has been very much about helping them on that path, on that road. Somebody who, I always ask a volunteer when I informally interview them, is there anything you actually want to do? I'm not talking about something you're good at. I'm talking about something you may be horrible at, in your opinion, but you want to do it, to set yourself a challenge. And for me, one of the most rewarding parts of my job is seeing that come to fruition and seeing the change in confidence of volunteers. You know, I've got someone working with at the moment, and they will tell you they never thought that they would be the person they are because of life experiences. And their confidence is just going through the roof at the moment, to the point where they're actually co-delivering some of the activity groups themselves. And that for me is what the role is about. And yeah, just identifying, helping them to identify with the person that they've always wanted to be.